Hey, thanks for joining me today for this episode of Curves Welcome, a podcast about facing and embracing the curves of life. If this is your first time tuning in, this is Susie Carr. Thanks so much for being here today on Curves Welcome podcast, Sam. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I'm very excited.
Yeah, so we know each other from Instagram, and we've connected that way, and it's just been wonderful. I get to see all of your posts about just life in general, but also your dog. And we were just talking before I hit the record button of how much I love watching pictures of your dog, and I love that about anybody's. I'm all about dogs. I actually sit there sometimes and look at the reels, and I get a bunch of dog stuff, and it just makes my heart warm. And I love it. I miss my babies terribly. So I get to live vicariously through people who still have fur babies.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you. He's been, I got him just a couple of days before this past Christmas. And he's my first puppy that I've ever had on my own. So it's been kind of like, it's been an adventure.
Oh, absolutely. Puppyhood is always a fun adventure.
Yeah.
It is. It's so much fun, but it's a lot of work because it's almost like you're setting the foundation for their life and your life too, because let's face it, when I first got my fur babies, I adopted one. She was 2.5 years old and came to us very, not trained on a leash ever or social. She was very socially awkward. Mm-hmm. She was my special doggie. Yeah. And it was tough. It was really tough. And so we had to set the foundation and train her, and it takes time and patience, but it's worth it in the end.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah. We're reaching the first year. He'll be a year old next month. So we're finally getting, hopefully he'll start to level out here pretty soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So today we're going to talk about the subject of living life on our own terms, which I love this topic because I do feel like many of us, I started off living my life not always on my own terms. I always worried about what other people thought, and I made decisions that weren't my decisions necessarily, but because the things that I thought other people wanted for me. And whenever you get into those waters, they muddy up, because if you're not passionate about what you're doing, or you're living life according to what somebody else thinks is the right way to live, then you're not truly living your authentic self. And so let's dig into this topic.
Let's dig in.
But before I think we dig into it, let's just if you could tell the audience a little bit about yourself so they get to know you a little bit before we dig in.
Sure. My name is Samm, as you know, born and raised in New England. So still here, which is perfect. Seacoast, New England. So it's wonderful. The beaches and the seafood and, all that stuff. I work a 9 to 5-er. It's actually a 7 to 3, but weekends off kind of thing, Monday through Friday. And it's just kind of doing the thing. And I hang out with my dog and, working on some books here, aspiring published author, but that's awesome. A work in progress. Yeah. So work in progress, but that's pretty much it.
Now, all right. So you're from New England. I didn't know that. And that makes me really happy because I'm from New England originally. Absolutely. I live in Maryland now, but I've lived in Maryland for about 20 years now, I think. But I grew up in New England, in Rhode Island. Yes. Where are you?
I'm in New Hampshire.
Okay. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm about 35 minutes from Portsmouth.
Yes.
So super, super close to like that area. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you have really beautiful summers and you have some fun winters, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Which we're, coming up on, not super pumped for, but you take the good with the bad, right?
Absolutely. New Hampshire is one of my, first of all, hardest states to pronounce because I do have a New England accent and I have a hard time saying the name of the state. But secondly, when I lived up in Rhode Island, I used to vacation up in New Hampshire all the time. Mm-hmm. I used to love going to the White Mountains and Concord. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Concord. And I would go camping up there and go hiking through all the mountains.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. The Kangamangas Highway, all of that stuff. It brings back really great memories.
Oh yeah. It's like I said, I've lived here my whole life and I just can't imagine being somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
you are aspiring to write some books.
I am. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that would be a very interesting segue into life on your own
Yeah.
terms.
So like I said, it's been a work in progress. The big one that I've been working on has been, a project for me for about 10 years. And of course, with jobs and I have a big family and dogs and things like that. Like it's, by the time I'm ready to settle down for the night, I go, okay, so am I going to watch an hour of TV or am I going to write? And usually TV wins out. Like,
I hear you. I really do.
yeah. So it's just kind of, I want it to be, I've been through a little bit of, stuff in my life, which we all have. So it's kind of based on that. But I want people to know, especially like younger gay kids, I want them to know, like when they read this book that, you can go through hard times, but at the end of the day, like if you just essentially live how you want to, then, or you know what I mean, and not do what anybody else thinks, then, you will end up in a good place. You can end up in a good place. Because essentially that's pretty much what, from my teenage years until now was, my 20s were, I was a mess. So
yeah. And sometimes, so books written by people who have had life struggles, curves, if you will, those are to me the most special books to read because it's you live through somebody's experience and you get to glean a different perspective on life and to be able to see life through a different lens than your own. Because let's face it, we all live very different lives. We all have different experiences. And I think the best way to learn is through experience, but also being able to understand what other people have gone through so that you have a more empathetic way of interacting with people and also understanding that, life isn't always a golden road, right? There are going to be ups and downs, ebbs and flows, hills and mountains, whatever, hills and valleys, however you want to put it. And those are one of the greatest lessons I learned in life. And to be able to not shy away from that and actually embrace that with what you're doing with trying to write a book and sharing that with other people is commendable. And it sounds like it's the premise of a really solid, powerful project. So yay.
I hope so. And now, I'm 34, I just turned 34. So now, like, I feel like I'm in a spot where I can, mentally, emotionally, like where I can be like, okay, like, I'm starting to level out here. Like, I'm kind of doing the adult thing. And so, all right.
It's time to like get the laptop out at the end of the day. And yeah. Absolutely. It's definitely an obstacle to productivity. And I struggle with that myself because there are just too many shows that are streamed. And so you have to actually carve that time out and say, okay, that this is my reward for doing an hour's worth of work. Okay, now I can go and sit there. So Samm, what does it mean to you to live life on your own terms?
I think it's just, if there's something, I had all the answers to these questions written down and, you just have to, I know it's tough to not worry about what people think. I know, but you just have to do it. Like, if there's something that you want to do, you got to do it. To me, it's living outside of those societal norms. So, you grow up and people are like, well, especially, being a woman, like you have to be this way, and by a certain age, like you have to be married, you have to be, you have to have babies, you have to do this. And it's going, okay, but why?
Yeah.
Why do I have to do that? Because somebody else told me to, like, I don't want kids. I'm single, and I'm happy with those choices. Like, it's not, but then, there are people that I've known that are, 22, 23 that get married and I'm just like, hey, if that's what you want to do, like, good for you. But like, that's a long time to be with somebody, you know, it's a long time, you know?
Yes.
And like I said, I've always been like a why kind of person, and I think,
Questioning. Yeah.
yeah,
Questioning why should I do that? So I totally get what you're saying. There are these unwritten rules of society where there are norms that who created the norms? I
yes,
don't even know who created the norms. What's normal for one person? What does that mean?
right.
Right? We're all different. We all come from different experiences, different backgrounds. And certainly I'm not like most people who, they get married, they want to have kids and live in a house with a white picket fence. That's never been me. I don't
Right.
have children myself. And that is just, it's a choice. And, it's interesting because even now, I lost my dogs about 3 years ago. And I get people constantly saying to me, when are you going to get a dog? When are you going to adopt? It's fine time. You rescue a dog, don't you think? And I'm like, I would love to rescue a dog right now. I really would, but I don't have the lifestyle for it right now
Right.
because my job is I'm on this all day long,
Mhm.
recording podcasts and videos, interviews, and I need it to be exceptionally quiet where I'm
Yep.
doing this from home. And well, my dogs were never quiet. So it would be really hard for me to have dogs right now in my life. But
Yeah.
just people tend to do that. I think they tend to ask you, why are you not doing this? You're at this point in your life. Shouldn't you be here? And
Yeah.
by whose standards are we talking about? Your
Right.
standards are not my standards. And so I think it's really, I'll be honest, I've been challenged with this my whole life is
Mhm.
not wanting to disappoint people, right? By my choices, the way I live, this and that, which is not the right approach. I know that in my heart. I totally know that. But I'm kind of one of those people who is, I would call myself a people pleaser, where I don't want to ever like stir the waters. And I feel like that actually does a disservice to
Mhm.
those people in my life, as well as myself, because I'm not going to be happy unless I'm living life according to my own terms.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I kind of, of course, and, when I was a teenager and in my 20s, like, I was like that. And, I still kind of did. So I was kind of like 50-50. Like, I was kind of like, well, I would like to do this, but, what's going to happen if I do this? Like, not to me personally, like, not what are the consequences, but like, what is this person going to think? Or what is that person going to think? And then one day I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm just going to.
Yeah. Like, can you give us an example of like a moment in your life, something that you said, okay, this is it. I am going to live life on my terms now. Like, was there a
Yeah.
moment where you decided that you can give us an example of how you did that?
Yeah. So like I said, I've always been kind of a little rebellious. I guess I was breech when I was born. So 34 years ago, like I just
starting from day one.
Yeah, started out that way. But I lost someone that I loved very, very much about 6 years ago. And that kind of it clicked in my head. And I have friends out on the West Coast. And they were always, come visit. And I'm like, well, like I can't because, I can't because I can't because. And it was always, I can't. And then Heidi's accident happened and I went, you know what? I'm just gonna go. So I bought myself a ticket to Oregon and I was gone for 8 days. And it was my first adult vacation. I was 28. And it was the best thing. And everybody was like, why Oregon? Why Oregon? Why not Oregon? Why not Oregon?
Right. Oregon's beautiful. I've never been there, but I've seen pictures.
It's highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. And then after that, like I just kind of, so I've been to the West Coast 3 times. I went and I spent my 32nd birthday in Savannah, Georgia. Like, and I just, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this because,
another cool spot. You're cool. You choose some cool spots there, Sam.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I'm covered in tattoos and, despite my mom's efforts, love you, Mom. Like, but like, she was always like, all right, well, we're done getting tattoos. Right. And I'm like, yeah, sure. For now, like, just little things that I've done. but, and then they turn into like bigger, things. And, and then before you know it, you're just kind of like, oh, so now I can't go back to, doing what other people say or what other people think I should do. You just can't go.
You can't go back. It's like that saying about the elastic band. Once you stretch it, it can't go back to the size that it was, because it's been stretched and it's been expanded. So our minds are like that. When we've had our minds expanded, you can't go back. I mean, I feel like that happened to me when I went on a trip to South America, Colombia, South America, a couple of years ago.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, like, I've lived sort of a sheltered life here in the US. I've never been outside of the US. And I went there and it expanded my mind in so many ways. And I can't put my brain back to what it was before I went there. I can't put it back that way, because I saw so many things. And what it did was it made me appreciate just the humbleness of living to where you are in life, not what other people expect of you. I saw a humbleness in people, and I saw friendliness, like strangers on the street. Everybody you passed, they said buenos, buenos, and I come back and if I said hello to anybody, they look at me like I have 10 heads. So, but there was just a new view that I saw on life, and how people enjoy the slow pace. They take siestas. They're home for 2 hours with their family in the middle of an afternoon, and then they go back to work. And I saw how that brought people together in the community and how beautiful that was. And I can't unsee that. And I don't want to unsee that. But when I come back here, it's not like that. And I want it to be that way. So, you have to do things that you choose for your life to be that way now that you've experienced it, because it's really hard to kind of shrink back to what you were before that experience.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever had like one of those aha moments in life that you experienced from living life on your own terms?
I don't know that I have. Like
when you got your tattoos, for instance, like before you got your first tattoo, and then after you got it, did you feel empowered by that? Like, what was that experience like?
That was something. I'd been 18 for 4 days, and it was, all right, well, I'd always wanted tattoos. Like my mom and I had talked about, I tried to go when I was 15 to get one. And of course you can't. And, and the day came and I was like, all right, well, I'm actually going to go get a piercing. Like, and my mom was like, no, absolutely. And I was like, no, but I'm 18, so I'm going to do what I want. But the whole, 18-year-old thing. Well, I was still in high school when I was 18. So it was kind of like, my mom was like, no, you're not. And I was like, yes. So we got into this huge thing. And then I felt so guilty by the time I got to the tattoo shop, like about that whole fight, that I was like, I'm just going to get tattoos. Like, that's what, like, I'm just going to get my tattoo.
You went from getting a piercing to getting a tattoo. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. Which I could hear at 16, you can get piercings with adult permission. So it would have been like getting a tattoo was a bigger deal. So I went and I got the insides of my wrists tattooed because I always wanted them done there. And I was just like, this is it. This is very cool. And now I can just go and do this like whenever I want. And I haven't stopped. Like,
I just keeps going. The journey of the tattoos keeps going and going.
Yeah. My last one was in June. So,
yes.
Yeah. So, I'm covered, and it's just fun. Like, it's just neat because they all have a story, and of course, like I have these ones from when I was 18 and, that's the story for those. And then I have the one that I got in June, and it's a cover up, but it's like, it's just great. Like, and they're a great conversation piece.
I was going to say that tattoos are really a beautiful picturesque way of describing your journey in life. So like you remember there, I'm assuming every tattoo you have has a symbol, has a reason behind it. And so when you look at them, you just remember I'm assuming something pleasant.
Yep.
And so it allows you to keep reliving that journey. And like you said, it's a great kind of conversation starter
Yeah.
where you can explore those beautiful memories with other people as well when you talk through them. So yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, what would you say to somebody who is struggling to find their way out of being stuck in the choices that they've made? Like, I mean, you spoke a little bit about, being gay and how, you went on this journey because this is your journey. What do you say to those who are struggling with that, who maybe live in families that won't accept, or like it's a tough road to
Yeah.
tell someone it's a tough road, a tough journey for a lot of people coming
It
out
is.
to family, not being accepted, that fear of not being accepted. What do you say to somebody who wants to live life on their own terms, but they're really afraid to?
I mean, as far as the gay thing, like I had a great coming out experience. Like, I mean, I was 15, and it was just kind of like, okay, like, okay.
It wasn't some big monumental moment that you had to yeah, like some people really, I mean, they're 30 and they
Yeah.
still haven't. Yeah. So it's,
Yeah. I mean, so, I think, so people who are nervous about it, I mean, you have to do it. Like I just helped someone very close to me last year, come out, and she's 33. So, I was just like, and it wasn't a great experience for her. But, I kind of, I talked her through it and I was there for her. And I said, just give them time, either they'll come around or they don't, and if they don't, as unfortunate as it is for you, it's going to be more unfortunate for them because they don't get to be a part of this journey with you. And it's so magical, like, and it's so beautiful, you know what I mean? Especially when you find like your core group of people and, and if your family can be a part of that, great. That's amazing. That's even better. And if they can't, then like I said, that's on them. And that's something, it's 2021. Like if you can't accept somebody for being gay,
like, come on, people.
yeah, you need to do some serious work on yourself. Like, and that's how if you can't accept somebody for any sort of anything, then, you need to do some serious soul searching and you need to do some serious work on yourself because that's just,
Yeah.
come on.
Absolutely. I have somebody in my life who I know is struggling on a different topic on what to do now that they've become an adult. And, the push is to get an education or a trade. And this person is struggling. They don't know what they want to do with their life. They're 18 years old. How do you know what you want? How do you know? And it's a real struggle. And it's really hard there's a risk, I think, in not pursuing what your true calling is, what your true path is. It's really hard to figure out what your true calling is and your true path sometimes, especially when you're young at 18. But one of the things that I feel is the most important thing for someone who's struggling is not to be afraid to fail. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not talking about sexuality here, I'm talking about like life choices, life decisions about, do I go to college? Do I take a gap year? Do I move out of state? Like, what do I do? And the conversation that I would have with somebody who's struggling with that, and of course, this person is very close to my heart, is you got to be able to fail, but fail up. There's nothing wrong with trying something out and failing at it and realizing, okay, maybe that wasn't the best choice. And I think when we allow ourselves that freedom to let go and fail and fall on our asses if we have to, knowing that we can get back up again. And even if we have to try it 30 times, it's okay. Because I don't know too many people at 18 or at 30 or at 50 who are completely sure with some of the choices they've made in life. Or, I mean, I know people who are, my age who still don't know what they want to do with their life. And I think it's because I think the reason people at that age are in that boat is because they didn't allow themselves when they were young to live life on their own terms. They lived according to what they thought other people wanted them to do. And I think that happens a lot with young adults, where you got to go to college, you have to be a doctor, whatever it might be. And they don't want that. Maybe they want to go and, lay bricks for a living. Maybe they want to cut trees. Maybe they want to, cut hair. I mean, whatever it might be, they don't want to go in, 8 years of college to become a doctor. And that's not what they want to do, but that's what they're forced to do, because that's what everybody in their life is telling them to do. And then they end up miserable.
Yeah.
So I think that's the risk that people take when they don't live life on their own terms. Yeah. What do you think in terms of the risks are involved?
I think they're always
on that?
I think they're always worth it. The risks are always worth it. There's always there they go.
I love it.
Yeah. They're always worth it. And like you said, you're gonna fail, and you can't be afraid to fail, because if you are, then you're going to fall back into those traps, or into those,
safe mode,
into that mindset of, okay, well, maybe this person was right, so maybe I should do this, or maybe, instead of doing what I want, I should just do what I'm told, because that way I won't fail. But you still might fail.
And I think that's a thing. A lot of us are afraid to fail because we've been programmed in life to think that failure is a bad thing. Yeah. If you fail, that means you failed, you're a failure. And that has such a negative connotation. And I actually really admire people who have tried things and failed. I really do. I think that's great. And like I said, some of my toughest lessons, biggest lessons learned, and biggest triumphs have come from failure. If I didn't experience falling on my face for something, then I would never have anything to compare what it feels like to actually stand up and not have fallen on my face. If you have nothing to compare things to, you kind of take things for granted, I think. And I don't think there's much growth in that. I think that you stay very stagnant. And I think a goal should be to be dynamic in life. And to be dynamic, you have to try different things. And I think there's such a thing as calculated risk, I would never encourage someone to do something without thinking it through.
Right.
Thinking through consequences. But I do think that with calculated risks, they're necessary with, I think, every aspect of life. I really do. I think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, Sam, what would you say, do you have a few tips that you would share with people so that they can, people who want to take the next step to live in life on their own terms, but aren't sure how to even fathom that, how to even get started? 3 simple tips.
So I really think, you need to find your people, your group, so you can bounce things off of people that know you. So, you have somebody to talk to, you have somebody to confide in, and they can be you've tried X, Y, and Z. So maybe, did you ever think about this? Or, not necessarily you need to do this, but, this might be an option for you. Or, that core group of people. It's very, very important to have, and just
absolutely
do it. Just do it. That's my whole, of course, within reason, you don't want to put yourself in danger. You don't want to put anybody else in danger. You don't want to, you don't want to get arrested. You don't want to do anything like that. But you know what I mean?
Maybe try to stay away from getting arrested. Yeah.
But like you said, those calculated risks, and, sit down, pro con lists, anything like that, but if it's something that you really, really want to do it. Just do it.
I like the pro con list effect too. Approach, I should say. I've done many pro and con lists in my lifetime. I've written many of those, and they are helpful, because I think something happens when you take a paper and a pen, and you put that, it's something that is happening. It's tangible.
Yes.
And you're writing these things down. And I don't know about everybody else listening, but it does something to my brain. I'm able to think more clearly when I have a pen hitting a piece of paper, and I'm able to say, okay, let's really think this through. What are the pros of, like, for me, moving from Rhode Island, where I lived for 32 years, and then moving to Maryland at that point in my life was a really big decision.
Yeah.
And I grew up, like I said, 32 years in Rhode Island. Everybody I knew was there, all of my friends, all of my family. And it was really hard to go from that to knowing nobody, but it was
Mhm.
for work. And there was a lot of opportunity here in Maryland that I didn't have in Rhode Island. So I had to do this move.
Yeah.
But I made that pro and con list. And it's not about the number of items on the pro and con list, because it can be very deceiving. Like, you can have 20 pro and 5 con and think, okay, but you have to actually kind of weigh the importance of each of those items too.
Mhm.
I always say, like, they're not always equal. So you really have to give value points to the items on the list and then tally up those numbers at the end to see what really is the right choice for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so definitely. Sam, is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners today on this topic?
I mean, like, I've been saying it the whole time. Just do it. Just, you have to, and me, like, I'm very impulsive. So I get an idea in my head, like, I'll be 35 next summer and I want to take a road trip so I can take the dog cross country. It's something I've always wanted to do. I want to turn 35 in Lake Tahoe, and that's it. So, like, my brain goes, okay, do it. Like, okay, do it. But again, like, I have to weigh the risks, I have to plan a route. I have to, so do what you want and what is going to make you happy, but plan it. Make sure, that it's step by step by step. And I know that sounds boring and not a lot of fun, but if you don't, it could be, you could fail, which is fine. But you could fail in a big, not great way.
Exactly. Right. You could run out of gas because you did not configure gas stops along the way in the middle of a stretch of, like, in the Midwest somewhere where they don't have gas stations for like 100 miles.
Yeah. Or anything for that matter.
Absolutely. I did a cross country trip one year. It was the best experience. It really was. And it was one of those things where it's like, should I do this? Should I not? And it was something that I'd always wanted to do. And I know people were like, what, you're going to go cross country? Are you kidding me? You just graduated college. You need to work now. And I'm like, I'm going to take 3 months off and go travel the country. So that's what I did. Made it all the way to Denver, and my car broke down in the Rocky Mountains trying to get up to, like, I think it was Estes Park. I kept seeing the sign and my car just kept dying out at that point. But then I went back down the hill, got a rent-a-car, got myself up the hill, and it was the best experience. Camping underneath the big, beautiful Rocky Mountain sky, seeing stars like right in front of your face. It was amazing. Yeah. And it's something to see. It's a beautiful country that we live in.
Yeah, it really is.
Well worth exploring. Well worth it. So one of these days I want to rent an RV and just travel again and see things that I didn't get to see the first time around. So definitely, absolutely. Like you said, just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. And like I said, I know I sounded like, just repeated myself a bunch, but honestly, that's what I started doing, and it was probably the greatest thing. This has been the greatest adult decision that I've ever made. Like, you just do it. But you know what I mean? Because you can come up with any excuse not to do anything. It's easy.
It sure is.
Like I do with my writing. You know what I mean? Oh, I can write, or, I can put the TV on. So that's why it's taken me 10 years to write a book. Like,
I know. I mean, so I'm sort of I don't want to call it a writer's slump. It's more of a choice at this point, but I haven't written a book since I released my last one right when the pandemic hit. Mm-hmm. And so I haven't written one since, because I was not in the mental capacity to do so last year. It just was a tough mental year for all of us. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't want to do it. So I decided, okay, but I need to do something with my brain. So I'm in grad school.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
like, okay, well, I'm going to do
Yeah.
that now.
Yeah.
So I definitely can't write a book while I'm in grad school because that takes
No.
up an enormous amount of time.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes, not sometimes, all the time. I miss writing. I miss writing stories and things of that sort, but it does take an enormous amount of creative energy and time to do it
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
you really have to be in that mind space to do that. And really, I think for somebody who is just starting out as a writer, I say don't be so hard on yourself in terms of trying to like fit into a particular rigorous writing schedule because that's
Mhm.
unrealistic. I would say put 15 minutes aside every day because we can all find 15 minutes. Like
Mhm.
instead of being on, for me, instead of being on Instagram dog reels, okay, take those 15 minutes back and write something. And
Mhm.
if you write for 15 minutes every day, after a year, that's a lot of writing. That's a lot of words. That's a potential story right there.
Yeah.
And could be the size of a novella or it could be the size of a manuscript. But my experience is if you just sit down and like for me, I take my iPhone and I put my timer on
Mhm.
and I set it for 10 minutes. I do 10 minutes. I set it for 10 minutes and I say, okay, write something and don't stop typing for 10 minutes straight. I don't care if I'm writing about the bird I just saw outside, like, or the lamp next to my table. Just write about something. And that never fails. I always go past the 10-minute mark. I get annoyed actually when the alarm goes off because now it just like ruined my train of thought. I'm like, and I just keep writing.
Yeah.
And that is the only way I was able to write the novels that I wrote was using that tactic because it's incredibly challenging to say, okay, I'm going to write for 2 hours every day.
Yeah.
Who really has that mental capacity to say, I'm going to go write for 2 hours every day. But if you just take it 10-minute chunks at a time, you'll be amazed.
Oh, that's great. Thank you
You'll
for
be
that.
amazed.
Yeah. See, my problem is that I have all these great ideas when I'm at work. Like, and
Of course.
yeah, and I work manufacturing, so it's not like I can just like stop and like jot things down. You know what I mean?
Of
Like,
course.
it's just, I'm like, so then I get home and of course, the first thing that I do, is I have to let the dog out and all that stuff, and then I come running back inside and I'll open my laptop. And as soon as I sit down, it's like gone.
Yes.
And I'm like, come on.
Yes.
And then I spend so much time like trying to get it back as opposed to just, and I'll have like little snippets that like will pop into my head and I'm like, okay, like jot those down. And then some days there's just nothing. Yeah.
I totally hear you. And my best friend during the time of writing is always a little notepad, like a small one that I could stick in my pocket because I don't care. Like never fails. I'm going for a walk and a brilliant idea comes into my head. And I'm like, I like have been on walks where I didn't have something to write down that thought, or I didn't have my phone or something. And I'm like, and I'll spend the whole walk reciting that line over and over in my head, which is just unhealthy. You don't want to be doing that. So always have a little notepad so that when you're with your manufacturing job on a break or something, if you can stop the machine, I don't know what you do exactly, but if you stop the machine, you could be like, okay, let me just at least write down like the words that are associated with this thought so that I can put it away for later.
Yeah.
That would be my trick. That would be my tip for you.
Yeah, that's great. No, I might actually, because I do have a couple of those, like they're like the composition notebooks, but they're like this big.
I'm telling you, that's the way to do it so that you don't lose the thought. And then it's not going to be a complete thought because you probably don't have time to sit there and like actually write it all out. But if you can write like the sentence or a couple of words of the sentence, that'll jog your memory for when you get back to it. That's how I would do it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So Samm, how can people connect with you if they want to connect with you?
Oh my goodness. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook and Twitter are Samm Shave, Samm with 2 M's, shave, like shave, SHAVE, shave your face. And Instagram is Samm.shave.
Perfect. Okay. I will link to those in the description of this podcast episode. And if you're watching it on YouTube, in the description. Perfect. Well,
Fantastic.
Sam,
Thank
it's
you.
been amazing talking to you about this
Yeah.
topic and just like getting to know you. It's been wonderful. I loved it. I could see your dog run by a little bit
Yeah.
and, be vocal.
Yes, with
She
his
wanted to
big
have
mouth,
her.
yeah. Yeah. I'm actually surprised that he's been quiet pretty much
I'm
this
sorry,
whole
he.
time. Yeah. Oh no, that's
Well,
okay. But yeah, because usually he's just a spaz, but he's been pretty
yeah, I would say
good.
pretty cool. Yeah. Just one
Yeah.
moment he wanted to be on the Curves and Welcome podcast. Let me
Yeah,
bark.
yeah,
That's awesome.
exactly. So, well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here with us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, go out there and continue to learn, grow, and embrace life's curves.